The neurological fear assessment device hummed in the sterile chamber of the Galactic Military Academy, its crystalline sensors pulsing with bioluminescent light. For 3 centuries, this machine had catalogued the primal terrors of every species in the Allied systems, the fears hardwired into their evolutionary code, the nightmares that lurked in their genetic memory. Commander Vexthul watched through the observation window as another cadet stepped into the scanner. The Kthari youth's chitinous plates clattered nervously, and within seconds, the machine's display flickered to life: isolation, colony death. Standard for a species that evolved in underground hive networks. The commander made a notation on his datapad and gestured for the next candidate. A Morphean glided forward, their gelatinous form rippling with anxiety. The scan took longer this time, processing the complex neural pathways of a species with distributed consciousness. Finally, fragmentation, loss of collective mind. Also expected. Vexthul had administered this test to thousands of cadets across hundreds of species. The machine never lied, never failed. It was the human's turn now. The first human, a broad-shouldered male named Marcus Rivera, stepped into the chamber with the casual confidence that seemed to characterize his species. Vexthul had noted this trait before: humans walked into unknown situations with an unsettling lack of appropriate caution. The machine began its scan, neural probes reaching into the deep recesses of Rivera's mind, searching for that primordial fear encoded in humanity's distant past. The sensors flickered. Hummed. Pulsed erratically. Then the printer activated, spitting out a single sheet. Vexthul's 3 eyes widened as he read the result: unknown. "There must be a malfunction," said Lieutenant Kreth, the Academy's chief technician. He was already moving toward the machine, tentacles extended to check the calibrations. "This has never happened." "Run a diagnostic," Vexthul ordered, but he couldn't tear his gaze from the human, who had exited the chamber and was now joking with another human cadet, completely unfazed. 3 hours later, after Kreth had verified that every circuit, every sensor, every quantum processor was functioning perfectly, they called in the next human. Emma Kowalski approached the machine with curious eyes, treating the fearsome device like an interesting puzzle rather than the psychological gauntlet it truly was. She stepped inside, and the scan began. Again, the machine struggled. The sensors reached deeper, pushed harder, analyzed patterns that should have revealed the ancestral terror bred into human bones during their evolution on Earth. Again, the printer delivered its verdict: unknown. By the end of the day, 15 humans had been tested. 15 identical results. The other species cadets whispered among themselves in their native tongues, spreading rumors. The Kthari worried this meant humans had no fear at all, which would make them dangerously unpredictable. The Morpheans theorized that human consciousness was somehow shielded from deep scanning. But Vexthul had another theory, one that disturbed him more than he cared to admit. That evening, he summoned the human contingent to his office. 23 humans stood before him, representing the full spectrum of their species' diversity, different pigmentations, different builds, different cultural backgrounds from various regions of Earth. Yet they all shared something the machine couldn't quantify. "I need to understand," Vexthul began, leaning forward on his desk. "Every species in the Alliance has a primal fear. The Kthari fear isolation because their ancestors died alone in collapsed tunnels. The Morpheans fear fragmentation because their evolution depended on collective consciousness. The Vexkari fear silence because sound is how we perceive reality. These fears are survival mechanisms, written into our very DNA." He paused, studying their faces. "But your species, the machine cannot identify your fear. Either you have none, which is biologically impossible, or our fear is something the machine wasn't designed to recognize," finished Rivera, his voice quiet but steady. Vexthul's dorsal spines rippled, a sign of surprise in his species. "Explain." A human female named Jessica Okafor stepped forward. She had been quiet during the testing, but now she spoke with the careful precision of someone who had thought deeply about the question. "Commander, every species you've tested evolved to fear specific threats from their environment. Predators. Natural disasters. Loss of essential survival mechanisms. Your machine looks for those specific, definable threats. And humans? Vexthul prompted. We evolved on a death world, Commander, said another human, James O'Brien, his Irish accent thick. Earth didn't coddle us. We had predators that hunted us, diseases that devastated us, weather that could kill us in minutes. But we survived all of that. We thrived despite it all. Emma took up the thread. Our fear isn't of a specific thing. It's not snakes or spiders or darkness or isolation. Some of us fear those things individually, sure, but not as a species. Our primal fear, the one bred into our bones over millions of years. She paused, searching for the right words. It's the fear of stagnation. Of giving up. Of not trying. The room fell silent. That's why your machine reads, unknown, Rivera added. It's scanning for external threats, things that can kill us. But humanity's deepest fear is internal. It's the fear of our own limitations, of accepting defeat, of looking at the impossible and not attempting it anyway. Vexthul sat back in his chair, his mind racing. You fear, yourselves. We fear what we might not become, Jessica corrected. Every time humans faced extinction on Earth, and we faced it many times, we didn't hide or specialize further into our niche. We adapted. We learned. We built. We refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. That's insane, Kreth whispered from the corner, where he'd been observing. That means you're never truly satisfied. Never at peace. The humans exchanged glances, and several of them smiled, that peculiar baring of teeth that other species found so unnerving. Yeah, Marcus said simply. That's kind of our thing. Vexthul understood then why the human military forces, though relatively new to the galactic stage, had already earned a reputation for attempting tactics that other species considered suicidal. Why human explorers volunteered for missions into uncharted space that promised only a slim chance of return. Why human engineers looked at problems that had stumped Alliance scientists for generations and said, let me try. They weren't fearless. They were driven by a fear so profound that the machine couldn't recognize it, the terror of their own untested potential, of dying before discovering what they could truly accomplish. The machine will need to be recalibrated, Vexthul said finally. I'll note in your files that the standard fear assessment is incompatible with human neurology. As the cadets filed out, Emma turned back at the doorway. Commander. For what it's worth, we do feel fear. We just don't let it stop us. After they left, Vexthul stared at the stack of papers on his desk, each one printed with that single, impossible word, unknown. He had spent decades believing he understood the psychology of fear. But the humans had revealed a truth he'd never considered, that perhaps the most terrifying fear of all wasn't of death or pain or loss, but of never discovering what you were truly capable of achieving. The humans feared their own horizons. And they would spend their entire existence pushing beyond them.